Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
The first time that CISM was ever called for me, I answered 911. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and I had a dad on the phone that his son had just shot himself in front of him. And I hear the mother is screaming, and I didn't know where, it was chaotic. Luckily, Charlie had presence of mind to he knew exactly what was going on. He's monitoring the call. So before I'm even through anything, he's dispatching out police, EMS, everybody. But he's still alive, and he shot himself through the throat, and it went all the way through.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, how's it going? This is Ricardo with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. And it is a new year. Really quick, this episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout out to subscribers. As always, thank you for everything. Very, very much. I appreciate you. Happy New Year. Yes, it is 2025 now. It's currently January 3rd. When this episode comes out, it'll be a couple weeks from now. But we've got so many good things, so many big things happening, and I can't say everything right now, but I will let you know as soon as I can. It's also cold as hell outside, so woo! We've got a lot of stuff going on. First thing coming up, I'm going to be going out to North Carolina to teach, record episodes out there, do a couple of Imagine Listening sessions, partnering up with the 911 State Board of North Carolina. Once again, thank you to all of you out there. It is going to be an excellent time, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also going to be going to the Be the Difference Conference. That'll be February 2nd through, I think, the 4th or maybe the 5th, something like that. And that'll be out in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The Denise Amber Lee Foundation is putting on that conference. I will be out there in a booth, recording episodes, doing all that good stuff. So I hope to see you all there. There's going to be more advertisements going out for that as well. So make sure to look out for that, as well as everything else that is coming up. And I'm super excited. Also, one last thing before we jump into this episode, my version of Volume 1 of Imagine Listening is going to be coming out February 16th, 2025. And that date is not only special because this version of Volume 1 is going to be coming out, but it is also the anniversary of the very first 911 call to ever be placed, which was February 16th. And that was in Haleyville, Alabama. So love that. And that's going to be coming out, and I appreciate all of you. So without further ado, let's jump in with my guest today. Super excited to have her on. Her name is Jenny, and she is an operations manager at Nashoba Valley Regional Dispatch out of Massachusetts. Yo, yo.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going. I wanted to ask you this before we started recording, but I thought, I think I'm going to go ahead and ask you now that we are recording. Did you or anyone around you end up getting any phone calls for some of those weird drones that were out in like New Hampshire and Maine and other spots? Like, were you guys getting any of that stuff over there too?
Nope, nothing here for that specific, because we are actually on a military base. So we're just underneath a no-fly zone, so they cannot operate drones. So if we have drones over our area, then it's usually something a lot more important than, there's usually something going on. So yeah, but we do cover seven towns. So I know that anytime there is a drone, like when there's proactive policing going on, the residents usually let us know that it's happening, and they are not usually happy about their privacy being, impinged upon. But no, nothing with the New Hampshire or Maine drones. So yeah.
No aliens, no nothing like
no aliens. No, not right now.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I think that because of the whole military base thing, it puts a damper on things. Although I do have my theories on what we are actually constructed upon, because we've been doing a building project around the side of our comm center, and there has been some crazy shit going on. I think we might be on some sort of a burial ground, but that might be a different episode for a different time.
Oh man! All right. Well, I have to remember that for some Halloween stuff. Yeah. No, always. There are a few places out here in Indiana where, and I'm sure a bunch of different places as well, but the ones that I have around here, there have been folks who have come on or have just sent messages. They're like, man, you'll have to come out here to check this out sometime, or we'll have to come on and talk about it. Where, a couple of the places, they're old enough where the center and like the county, like they've got an underground pathway that goes to the courthouse where they would bring, some of the prisoners and stuff for court cases and everything. But it's old enough that they see things, like people have seen things around there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all about it. The horror genre is my favorite genre, but I don't know, man. Like,
like random temperature drops when you walk into different parts of this building, and I don't know where the flies came from in the middle of the cold snap, but it was bad for a bit. It was gross.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, it was very, very strange. So this might be a good October episode.
We'll have to revisit that one.
Yeah, I think we might.
Well, I am, again, like I said before, super excited to have you on. You and I, just about a couple of months ago. We were out in Texas together. Yes, we were out there at the ranch, and then we saw each other the following week. At the conference in Portland, Maine. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm excited to have you on to learn more about you and your story. And so you've got about 10 years in public safety now, right?
Yeah. I started out in hospital care at a level 1 trauma center, and then was like, this is all good, but I wanted to be out on the road. So I was an EMT from about 2014 until about 2019, roughly, is when I entered into dispatch. And in between there, I kept the hospital job. I worked on the truck. I worked for CMed. Do you have like a central medical emergency direction, like a go-between in Indiana between the trucks and the hospitals? Not every state has those.
I'm not for sure on how Indiana does it, because I dispatched in Florida and Michigan, so I didn't do any dispatching here in the state.
Okay.
But so am I hearing you correctly? You were in dispatch and doing these other things all at the same time?
Before I got to Nashoba, I was handling the three. I worked at CMed, on the truck, and at the hospital for about 4 years. I had 2 kids, 2 boys at home, and they are expensive. So,
of course.
Yeah.
I just mean the sanity alone.
Oh no, yeah. It was absolutely insane. And I was in school at the time. I was going back to complete a nursing degree, which unfortunately life so that did not happen. But so I wound up entering into dispatch basically on a whim because we were relocating out of state. We were moving from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, and my commute to all of those jobs was about an hour and a half. And I knew of this establishment from my job at CMed. And I was like, well, take a shot. So I called the then director, and they had one spot open that they were hiring for. So interviewed and got it. And this saga starts on April 9th, 2019 is when I walked in and started training here. So I've been here for just shy of 6 years.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that time, I stopped working on the truck. I had thrown out my shoulder. It was kind of time to stop trying to pick people up.
So, well, probably, right?
Yeah.
Your body's like, hey, we got to do something different now.
Yeah, it's like, you're pushing 40. You need to definitely stop doing what you're doing. So I listened, which we don't usually do.
No, we don't. So that's awesome that you did, because you're right. Yeah. A lot of people don't. I for one, I'm the same way. And I tell people, listen to your body. Yeah. And and I say that now because of not doing it before, because man, eventually your body will make you listen.
Absolutely.
And then you're kind of screwed. Then you're like, okay, now I got to figure my body out, as well as what's the next pathway, what's the next direction and everything. So, okay. So you were doing this, you were working hospital stuff, you were, EMT and everything, working out in the field. You're listening to things on the radio, right? Did you end up getting a chance to do a sit along at all for dispatch so that you knew kind of what you were getting into, or
nothing? No? They didn't do them here at that time. We do them now, but they never did them. My first time in a real 911 dispatch center was when I came in here for my first interview. It was crazy. I didn't know what to expect. I knew obviously TV shows, which don't depict. And I worked for a private ambulance, which we were a 911 backup, but we didn't work directly out of the station. So came in here and just saw a bunch of consoles and darkness and not very happy people who have now become my brothers and sisters. They're literally my extended family. But yeah, it was dark and twisty, and I felt like I was walking home. It was nice. It felt comforting. After working in the ER, it's just like, because you have to have a kind of mentality to opt to work in an emergency department and an ambulance at the same time.
Yeah.
So this kind of fit. It felt nice. But no, I had no idea what I was getting into.
So that's pretty good then, that you felt pretty much at home. So I mean, you're walking in and you see all these monitors and everything else. I mean, was there anything that surprised you, or did you feel overwhelmed, or did you have that feeling of like, I'm here, like this is cool, I'm down for this?
I expected it to be, I don't know, larger than life. And even though we dispatched for 7 towns and multi-disciplines, the building is not huge. It's a pretty small building. I drove past it 3 times, and luckily I was a half hour early, or else I would have been very late. So when I finally found my way in, I'm like, all right, this has got to be, I guess this is the place. So once you walk inside, then you can tell it's definitely a dispatch center, because all of the desks, all the consoles, the four monitors on every single console, and then screens lining the entire room. I'm like, it looks like a command center. There's some shit going down, and it was just a random day in the middle of March. But there was just something about the vibe, even though it wasn't an overly welcoming, when you first walk in, because it was so dark and kind of foreboding. But it was something about it just felt like the mystery of it pulled me in. So I was like, all right, I'm down for this. I definitely want to try this out. I hope it works. So I interviewed with the then director and deputy director. About 2 weeks later, got a phone call, and the rest is history. I was able to get started after my notice was up. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Now, so you started April of 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long did the training last?
My training here, I think I was officially released from training on the books in early July, but I was actually released, I'd say the middle to end of June. And because I was doing okay. It was very hands-on, very intensive, kind of terrifying. I mean, I work with my then trainers now, and they're amazing. But one of them, Jim, swear to God, love him. He made me what I am today. And when we were done, the day I got released, he pulled me aside. He's like, "All right, I need to ask you." I'm like, "All right, what?" He's like, completely off the record. Was I a real asshole? And I'm like, "You want me to be honest to you?" And he was like, "Please, I need this feedback." I'm like, "You made me crap my pants daily, but it was not because I was afraid of you. I didn't want to let you down. You were extremely intimidating to me because the knowledge is just like poured out of him. And he had such an ego, but he had the goods to back it up. And I still tell him that today. I'm like, his head does not fit through the doorway, but it's because he actually knows this shit. And it makes me so upset because he's literally never wrong. And I hope he doesn't listen to this, because if he does, he's going to know that I said that out loud. But it was a very intense training. It's supposed to last usually 4 months. It was definitely not 4 months. And they put me through, but they had me hold out until early July because of the shift change. Like they do a biannual shift bid with the union. So yeah, about 3 months, absolutely crazy, very hands-on. I got to ride along with one police department and one fire department, which now we do it different. We send them out to every single agency. They get to see everybody, but one and one. And the crap of it was the fire department. We had 4 medical calls. I'm like, I'm an EMT. I don't need to see any of this stuff. So they actually had me working and trying to help out, which was kind of funny. So it was a good download of information. Very, I thought my brain was going to explode most days.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn and things to memorize. Like it's good to know where to find things, but man, memorization really helps pick up the pace on everything that you're doing, because it is from the time the phone rings, you're thinking and thinking and thinking and making decisions and all. But not just that, when you've got your partners on calls as well, or they're on the radio. I mean, depending on how many people you have on the floor at the time, you're able to, help out or yell something over, or, if you remember something, you can yell it out or send a message over to them. Say, I spoke to that person the other day. They are telling, they're giving you good information, and so you had a couple. So I've got a couple of questions, and one of those is, when you were making your transition into dispatch, so 2-part, do you feel like the stuff that you were doing prior to that helped you prepare in a way for the calls that you were going to be taking? And then 2, was it hard of a transition because you're going from actually being hands-on to now you're just on the phone?
Yeah, I feel it definitely helped, because I had a kind of an idea of what type of things that I'd be sending people out to. But literally only on, say, like the medical side, because that's all the knowledge I had. And the only interaction I ever had with police was mainly in the ER, if they would bring in somebody and have a quick back and forth with them. So I had no real background on what type of situations I was going to be sending my people into. So for that, in the field work didn't really prepare me for the gravity of it. And how important it is on our side to get all the information and to give it out in a timely manner. Definitely felt helpless in the beginning, because all of the knowledge that you have to be able to do something hands-on, you have to kind of keep that in the back of your brain to help you make decisions when you're on the phone, but you can't actually apply it. At least in Massachusetts, they tell us, take off your EMT hat. You cannot give the same type of advice that you would, and then not knowing the resolution was the biggest thing for me, not knowing what actually happened. And, if they made it through, if I made a difference. We heard everything up until that point, and then nothing. So that was rough. That took a long time to get past, if I'm even past it, which I don't think I am. I don't think I am.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I ask because there's a lot of folks who have made that transition over, and they've said something similar where I can just imagine, who, because I felt like this on the phone with a lot of people in a lot of different situations. I can just imagine how much more in depth it would be for you, where sometimes you're on the phone and, I would be taking a call and I wanted to reach through the phone to just like hug this person.
Yeah.
Or if I'm giving instructions to reach through the phone and do it for them, right?
Yep.
And you were used to years prior to that being hands-on all the time.
Yep.
And like you said, you've got to kind of shut it off or shove it to the back of your mind and just be a voice.
Yeah.
Which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. It's not easy to just completely take yourself out of the equation after a certain point, and then knowing that it's just my voice. It's my only tool. I can't grab my stethoscope. I can't grab my shears. I can't grab anything and actually help out. It's just me talking, and hope that that's enough for the situation that you have.
Do you, as you were going through your training and all, do you remember any of those first, whether it be your first call or some of the earlier calls that you were taking on 911?
My very first 911 call was a woman walking in to find her father dead. And it was a Sunday morning, and of course I pick up, Jim was like, come on, all right, you got this. And he's all pumped because he's like, she's going to answer it. Nobody answered it. She's going to get it. So I grab it and, 911, this call's recorded. Where's the location of your emergency? Gives me the address. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, I'm pretty sure my father's dead. I literally was just like, and I looked at my trainer. I was like, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, it's not a medical call if he's a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find a call to enter into the CAD so that I can, and there's no body found. There's no, like, it was literally just, and he's like, why are you not talking? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I was just like completely just on autopilot. So then I was like, do you want to try CPR? And she's telling me like, no, no one's seen him. He's cold and all this. And I'm like, all right. So I'm trying to get the information. And then there's Big Pete in the back of the room. And he hadn't said one word to me in 2 months. Like literally, he hadn't spoken to me because he just never talked to any of the trainees until they were released. All I hear is, extend the call, because I didn't save the call into the CAD. So he's trying to dispatch someone out. And I'm like, just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I quickly put something in, and then I just wound up winging it because I couldn't find the right protocol in my system. I couldn't find anything. And I'm just asking her some questions. She didn't want to do CPR. And then she starts crying. So then, all right, well, I'm human. I might not be able to do this the way I'm supposed to, but I'm like, you know what? It's all right. You're going to be okay. I don't want you to touch anything in the room. Can you leave the room? And she's like, I don't want to leave him by himself. I'm like, just go stand in the doorway. And then she's like sobbing. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to like listen, like how long it's going to take them to get there. And she's like, you can go. And I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And I just stayed on the phone with her. And then she starts talking about all these family members she needs to call, and her mind is just racing. So then I start writing stuff down that she's telling me, even though she wasn't really telling me. So I wrote down her son's name and then her brother's name. And then I started asking her, do you want me to make these phone calls for you? And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, well, I can call one of them and get them to come to you. And then she starts crying even harder. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And my trainer's standing there like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm dealing with my patient. He's like, your patient is dead. I'm like, no, that's not my patient anymore. And he's like, oh. So I kind of like taught him something on that time, which was very strange. But so yeah, I stayed on the phone with her till the end. As soon as the ambulance got there, I waited till they got upstairs, and and then I just disconnected. And he's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just didn't mean to screw this one up so bad. He's like, I don't think you did screw it up. I think you did what you needed to do. And then the phone rang again, and someone was complaining that their cows were loose in the middle of the road, and that was the transition into the rest of my day. That was my very first 911 call. And I'm like, I don't want to do this again. He's like, well, you're going to be answering the next one. And then the phone rang and I'm like, damn it. Like, son of a, no. But yeah, so that was that very first one.
Wow. Yeah. So it's interesting how it goes when you're in training and you very first start answering calls. And sometimes it's like that. It starts out rough. And I don't mean the performance or anything. What I mean is that type of call that it's the death of someone and you're like, holy shit, like this is the first one. Like what? And it's one thing to be listening to calls, right? With a trainer as they're taking them and you're, on the umbilical cord and you're listening and stuff. And you're like, holy crap, that was a crazy one. And then it's your turn. I mean, you can train and you can prepare all you want, but the moment that phone rings and it's your turn, sometimes not that it goes all out, it's in the back of your head, right? But now you're in the seat and you're the one taking the call and you're going through it. And in the back of your mind, you're like, oh my God, it's like, holy hell, this is real.
Yeah.
And once you're done with it, and it's something like that as well, like the universe is like, okay, that was something for that first one. Let's roll the dice and give her another one. And it was a cow. Yeah. It was loose.
Yeah. Which I've gotten really very well known with these cows that live in Lunenburg because they don't like to stay inside their pen.
Oh man, they're
it's been almost 6 years and they're constantly like, they just go. We're like, yeah, we know. And then we start calling the people that own the farm. Like, can you please get them? So
they're like those Chick-fil-A cows. They're like, eat more chicken. They're trying to.
Yeah, exactly. They do. They sit there, they pick it. They're like, no.
Oh man. So, okay. So quick question. How many, a couple things here. One, do you do 8 hours or 12 hours? And then two, how many people are on the floor at a time?
So we have 8-hour shifts if there's no overtime, and day shifts and eves are both mandatory 3 dispatchers, and mid shift is 2. We're hoping to up that, which with our new people, we should be able to increase it to 4, 4, and 3. But it's been 3, 3, 2 since I can remember.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like mine in a sense, the last center that I was at where I finished off my career, our minimum was 3. And then on the weekend, it was 4. But we could, if we needed to, we could work with 2, but it was always a minimum of 3. So you would be able to yell something over to whoever was on radios or something and be easily to hear them versus one that's got like 20 people on the floor at a time. And so you're taking that call. And did you go right to that next one? Did you have a moment to take a breath and talk to your trainer?
They asked if I needed a minute. I asked him how badly did I screw it up, gave me a little bit of feedback. He's like, you want to step off the floor? I'm like, nah, I'm good. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. So I just went through. It didn't hit me until I got home, and I'm like, oh shit, I really did that. So yeah, but that's like the one thing here. We all kind of get in each other's business so much that we start to know just based on facial expressions and mannerisms. All right, she definitely should walk away for a couple minutes, or maybe I'll send her a text message, things like that. So we do keep an eye on each other, make sure that if you have to, go grab a coffee, you can take off, as long as the world's not crashing down.
Of course. Yeah. No, exactly. That is always good to have that type of support. We, in the beginning, we tried our best, nobody, you've heard my story. Nobody was talking. We weren't really talking about it or anything, but, we would watch out for each other after, we all started opening up and talking more and everything. And it's even more different there now. But of course there are some places out there that they don't even have that. So I'm glad that you had that support even right off the bat in the beginning, to feel comfortable enough that if you were able to get up and walk around or step outside for a moment or whatever, just to kind of process what you just heard, that you were able to do that. That's excellent. So the reason I asked earlier, again, about when you started, and it was April of 2019, and where you ended your training and you started taking calls and everything else, is because you, a few months after that, like everybody else, went through this crazy time period that is weird to think back on now,
Oh yeah.
of the pandemic.
Yep.
So your like first year in dispatch, um, because I always say kind of the sweet spot of when you first start out dispatching, where you really feel like you're dialed in, like you might know your protocols and all this other
Mhm.
stuff, you're taking calls, but there's still that feeling of like you're not you're not fully in, like you're not
Yeah.
dialed in completely yet. And so I feel like it's about 2.5 3 years sometimes
Yeah.
is the sweet spot for feeling dialed in. But you weren't into that area yet when the
Mm-mm.
pandemic hit. You were you were still
Oh
kind of
yeah.
just starting out. I mean, if it was late June, early July, when you're out of training and you're taking these first calls and everything, you're building, you're building all of this stuff that's going on. But man, I can only imagine
Oh yeah.
what it was like going into the pandemic for you.
Yeah. We were all working not mandatory doubles, but they had up staff because nobody knew what was going to be going on, just that we were essential workers and we needed to be at work no matter what. So they allowed us to have 4 on days, 4 on eves, and just kept the 2 on mids. So I want to say that probably, let's see, the world basically shut down. It was like middle of March. So I'd say between the middle of March and probably June, we were on a 4 and 2 rotation. So from my regular 4s, I worked doubles all 4. And then I would usually pick up at least one more double on one of my 2 days off. So I was putting in anywhere between 100 and 108 hours a week, every week for, I can't even tell you. Like, I saw my kids for just on the weekends. It felt like I was deployed somewhere. Like they'd be like, "Oh, mommy's home. Look at that." Like it was like a novel event if I was actually at home for dinner. And then we had people out sick, so it got even more. It was absolutely wild. Every single one of us, we spent so much time together here that it's like we all just had the same like, oh yeah, well, my husband's pissed at me again, or yeah, my wife doesn't know if I'm actually alive anymore. So we just all commiserated together and tried to make the best of it. Like I can't tell you how many hands of Uno that we played just to try to keep our spirits up, and because the call volume was not really, because the officers weren't doing the motor vehicle stops. They had to rethink how they were going to do well-being checks. Are they going to go into these houses? Are the medicals were still kind of up there, but even those started to fall off when people heard how bad the hospitals were, because nobody was going anywhere.
Yeah.
The beginning, most of our medical calls, honestly, were people going through alcohol withdrawals. It was horrible because when the world shut down, they shut down the package stores as well. And people that had not planned on not drinking, they started to get sick. And that was a big thing around in Massachusetts anyway. We had a lot of illnesses and deaths from that. So then they rethought things and they're like, okay, well, maybe this is not the best idea. So then they opened up package stores and worked out some way of, I don't know, home delivery or however they did it. But it was wild, like being here so much. And then once things started to get better, it was tough for me to reacclimate to being a mom at home again and being normal. And I'm out in the daylight, and I'm not stuck in this world anymore. And we can actually go places. That was nuts. Like I didn't even know what to do with myself. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
And that's why I wanted to know. I wanted to get into that because like we're just discussing, you were still early on in your dispatch career and you're taking all these calls. What were some of the other types of calls that you were getting? Because I remember in the news that there were a lot of more like DV type calls that were coming in. It's like because people are having cabin fever and everyone just started like arguing. not so much that people are like beating on each other, but it's just a lot of arguments and stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
And
A ton of verbal altercations, a lot of domestics. And then when mandates came down that people were not even supposed to have people in their own homes, then you had neighbors knocking out their neighbors, like, there's 5 cars in the driveway next door. And we're like, yeah, like, they have a gathering of more than people than they're supposed to have. And I feel unsafe. I'm like, are you there? Did they invite you? They're like, no, I wouldn't go over even if they did. And I'm thinking, that's why you're calling me, because you didn't get invited.
you didn't get the invites, yeah. What did they call those again? It was like super spreaders, right?
Yeah,
Or something like
yeah.
that. Super spreader parties or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing that I remember, like, I talk with my kids every so often, like, you remember when that happened, like how crazy that was? And like I remember every day I'd be sitting in the living room waiting for that news broadcast to come on, that special report, just to hear more and more and more that was going on and stuff. And I remember thinking as well, I can just imagine what it is like for those who are in dispatch taking some of these calls, and not just the types of calls that are coming in, but the different protocols and everything. Because I had been reading a lot about how, now you have to ask as well in your the questions in the beginning about the people who are calling, like, have you been somewhere? Do you have a cough? Do you have fever? Like, all of these other things that you have to add in now. And I was just trying to wrap my mind around it, and it was some crazy times.
Oh, yeah. And then trying to figure out a way to alert the PD or the EMS that, oh yeah, there's COVID in that house, but saying it in a way over the air that doesn't break HIPAA.
Right.
That got creative, like confirmed isolation location. Like, after I said it the first time, I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, really, what does that even mean?
Like, we got to bust out the thesaurus.
Like, seriously, I'm like, who wrote that? I'm like, I understand it's a policy, so I'm going to adhere to it, but who wrote that? Says it. So yeah, so that was nuts. And it's funny now, because even now we'll look at we'll put in an address in the CAD, and you'll get those ones that we missed that'll still show confirmed isolation location at this address. And I'm like, who the hell put that? Oh God, that was in 2020. Okay, I think I can purge that. Pretty sure they don't still have COVID.
Oh man. Yeah. No, exactly. And, oh geez. Yeah. So all of those different types of calls during that time. And I remember before everything got shut down, I was coming back, or actually, no, I think I was going from California to Georgia for speaking and podcasting stuff.
Yeah.
And, I had been seeing that things were getting closer. And I remember sending a message to my wife, and I said, hey, you might want to go to Costco and just get some essential stuff. And she's like, well, I'll make sure to get some like extra toilet paper and water too. And I said, all right. I said, I don't know that we need toilet paper, but yeah, sure. Because like, no, it wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't, it hadn't been declared as something that people are like taking. Sanitizer, toilet paper, anything else. And I said, yeah, I don't think we need it, but yeah, go ahead, get some extra stuff. So she ended up getting like 2, like the big ass Costco things of toilet paper, 2 or 3 of them, and then like 3 cases of like Ice Mountain water or something like that. Yeah. And I remember she got a hold of me, and she sent me a picture while she was there. She goes, it's a good thing you told me, because other people are already doing the same thing. And I said, what? And it was a huge ass line. And luckily we had gotten our shit beforehand, because after that, when I got back, that's when everything went to hell. And it was all over the news, like everyone's buying toilet paper. And I was like, what the hell?
Every single trip to the store, even if we didn't need it, we're buying toilet paper. And then when they weren't letting anybody go anywhere, and they recommended only have one member of your household if they're already going out. So of course, I'm working, so I'm the only one leaving. My parents lived with us at the time, and my mom was sick. So I'm like, no one's in or out of the house except me. And so I'm working 16-hour shifts with an hour commute, and still trying to figure out, okay, well, how the hell am I supposed to get to the grocery store? So then we're ordering all right, well, Walmart delivers, and this poor person, we always have the same person delivering it, and they must have thought we had some crazy GI issues because we were ordering toilet paper every single week, every time I ordered, and finally the pantry was filled, and my dad goes in and he's trying to find something, and the toilet paper fell on him. He's like, "You think we have enough yet?" I'm like, "You're saying this now, but you don't want to be that guy that runs out. Like, we'll just
Right. Unless you have a bidet,
yeah,
unless you have a bidet or something.
No, that's definitely one of those things you need. Coffee and toilet paper and water. You
There
have
you
those
go.
things, you can pretty much do anything. That's my take. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah. Those were some times. And I remember talking to a lot of dispatch folks, and they're like, you won't believe, the shit that we're going through, some of the calls that are coming in,
yeah.
the types of calls, people just simply being tired of being around each other. Like it's like they're as of right now, like a lot of the calls we've been taking, it hasn't been physical or anything. It's like they just don't want to be around each other, and they're finding that out now. And there's going to be like either a lot of divorces or a lot of babies. Like that's basically how it's going to be.
Exactly.
It's everyone is shut in, and there you go.
Yeah.
So you end up going through all of that, and you continue on. Like we said, you've been doing this for what, dispatch, like 6 years?
Yeah, just about.
So during that time, and everything that you've experienced, are there any? And I'm sure there are a lot of calls, right? And of course, only if you feel comfortable sharing. But is there a call that kind of sticks with you?
So the very first time I ever had any experience with the CISM team being called for us, at least for me personally, I had sat with some of my coworkers before, which in the very beginning, when I first started, we had our own little support system. We just talked to each other, but the former directors, they didn't ever see the need usually that we needed that. So once our current director came in, she's a very big supporter and very big proponent of it. So this is just, I'd say, I think it was 23, just last November, myself and my coworker, Charlie, and probably, I can't remember who else was, but he and we are the shit magnets. Like literally, when we work together, it's pretty bad. Like we get the absolute worst calls. So the first time that CISM was ever called for me, I answered 911. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and I had a dad on the phone that his son had just shot himself in front of him. And I hear the mother is screaming, and I didn't know where, like, it was chaotic. Luckily, Charlie had presence of mind to he knew exactly like what was going on. He's monitoring the call. So before I'm even through anything, he's dispatching out police, EMS, everybody. But he's still alive, and he shot himself through the throat, and it went all the way through. So I'm trying to tell him how to do CPR, but also trying to tell him that he needs to hold pressure. So I have the mother's freaking out doing CPR, the father's holding pressure. I hear ungodly noises. And then I hear the girlfriend, who's the mother of their children, walk in the door, and the scream that came out of her mouth. And because I know the family, because we've been to the house before for other issues. Mm-hmm. And I know the kids, they're young. So in my head, I'm getting like, I'm talking to them and everything's all good. And I find out, okay, where's the gun? Don't go near the gun. Just tell me where it is. So we're letting the officer know that the guns were wherever located. The dog is wherever, because they have a huge dog, all this, everything. So I'm going through the process, doing the CPR, telling him don't take the hands off the neck. Just try to keep his head straight. And then I have this morbid, I keep the line open usually when they finally arrive so I can hear what's going on. And then I didn't realize that I had started crying. Like I'm sitting there listening after I didn't have to do anything else. PD's on scene, EMS is there, and I'm just sitting there listening. And my partner comes up behind me, and I didn't realize that he was there. And next thing you know, he takes the phone from my hand and just hangs it up. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. But in my head, I'm seeing flashes of my own kids because they're only about 5. My oldest was maybe 5 years younger. And then, like, I'm seeing my mom, like, she's passed, but I can't imagine, like, what she would have gone through. Like, had this happened to her. So like, all these flashes of stuff. And then I'm just sitting there crying. And my partner and I, we just have this, like, brother-sister relationship. We're constantly cutting up with each other. But he gives me a hug. And that was the first time I think he ever hugged me. He just has this bubble. He usually doesn't. And I'm just like, all right, I'm fine. Just leave me alone. I'm okay. Whatever. And then I get an email from my boss and she's like, hi, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What's up? And she's like, Charlie called. And I'm like, why? She's like, I know that wasn't an easy call. So when you get back after Thanksgiving, we'll have CISM. I already called them. I'm like, seriously, I don't need it. I really don't need it. And she's like, it would be a good thing. So I'm like, fine. That same day, just after that call, Charlie had a jumper that didn't make it. And then we had a stabbing. And then we had a pretty bad medical. So I looked at him and I'm like, if I'm going to CISM, you're going to CISM because there's no way. He's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I think the guys that came in on that CISM needed their own CISM after they left us because they're fake. But yeah, that call, that one sticks out. And then you hear, I read the reports afterwards because, again, morbid curiosity. And whatever you learn about the person, were they a good person, not a good person, it didn't matter because in that moment, all it was, you know, an early 20s kid. And all of these people around him, their lives were never going to be the same. And it was rough. So yeah, that one stuck. So.
The morbid curiosity, I can relate. I think it's more so for our own closure.
Yeah.
And and for anyone listening to this who's, of the general public, it might sound weird as well. And they might even say, oh, yeah, that is a morbid curiosity. But no, when you think about it, dispatchers, 911 professionals, we don't always get any of that closure. And to be able to heal in some form or another, we need to do things like that, like you just mentioned. I mean, it's like just kind of comparing a little bit when I shared part of my story where I wanted to know more. Like I knew what happened to the person, but that note was there, and I for whatever reason, you can't explain it, wanted to read it, and I did. And it's kind of the same thing. You got the report, you end up going over it and stuff. And it's part of, that's a form of closure to find out more information because you've got what you heard and all that other stuff. But man, that added information, or for someone to actually tell you what happened or anything beyond that, some background, that to me is a gift of closure, and that helps us move forward instead of always wondering.
Yep. Yeah. I'm too curious of a person to have it hanging out there. So even with medical calls, obviously if a CPR call goes well and it went well, that they got them back while they're still on scene, that's great. We follow up with the medical director and we find things out. But it's like those calls where you worked with the caller for the entire time, and then that they got on scene, and then from there, what happened to did they make it? Did they not make it? And we usually only find out if it is definitely a save, which is great. And then, we get a bag of lifesavers and our picture taken, and that's fantastic. But all those other calls, what really happened? Did they, is the family okay? Did anybody, did they get to say goodbye? Like any of that stuff. So it's like all those little things. it's the closure that we definitely need.
Right. And for those who are watching and listening as well, who might not know what CISM is, that's critical incident stress management. And these are teams that come out to talk with folks when they've had hard calls like this. And believe it or not every center has a CISM team or a peer support team or someone that they can reach out to. Sometimes it's through the the EPA or EAP.
EAP.
It's EAP, not EPA. That's Environmental Protection
Yeah, that
Agency.
one's different.
That's a different one.
Yeah, it's a different kind of support.
Yeah, different kind completely. Yeah. The EAP. And sometimes that's a little tougher because not all of the people who come out come from public safety or understand public safety. And sometimes people will chat with them, and there's no that that closure or that healing piece isn't there, because then it's like you're just talking to someone who doesn't understand, so you're just kind of staring blankly like, all right.
Exactly. It's like, I think I just traumatized them more by trying to help myself. And then you wind up feeling worse because it's like, okay, that didn't help me because now I just made their day just totally shattered.
Right. Yeah. And, listening as well on the phone. I can remember a lot of times where I wouldn't be able to hang up either. And for those, again, who are watching, listening, who might not understand that piece of it, it's just, you want to hear, you want to have that confirmation or something that person that you're trying to help is okay. Just a little glimpse of hope that something is going to be a good outcome, even if it's a long road ahead for that person. You know that they're still with us on this earth because we are humans, man, and we're connecting with them, whether it be the patient or the people who are on the phone as well. And it's just all of it all together. Us as the ones who are trying to help, wanting to help, that's our job. That's what we're there for. We just want to make sure that everyone is going to be okay. So keeping that line open and listening, it's like, please, in the back of your mind, you're like, please, God, let them be okay. Please, to something. whoever higher power or something, the universe, however you want to put it, just please help them. Let them be okay.
Yeah. It's not easy.
It's an interesting profession that we're in, is it not?
It is. Definitely is. Yeah, there's no lack of stories. That's why my brother is a teacher and his wife is in corporate training, and they invite me to come hang out, and I can hang out with them because he's just as tapped in the brain as I am. But she has all normal friends, and she's like, "Come on, we're gonna host girls' night, martinis and appetizers and stuff, and just me and the girls. Why don't you come?" And I'm like, I don't think they'll ever want to see you again if you bring me around, because I literally don't know how to talk to normal people. They're like, no, it's a shock value. They'd love you. I'm like, so I'm your entertainment. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, right. Like, thanks a lot.
I'm like, okay, this is a paid engagement then. You're definitely paying for my drinks, and I will
attend. For sure. Right, yeah. You're paying for my drinks, for my food.
Exactly.
And then I'll do my stand-up.
Right. Like, if anybody cries or throws up, it is not my fault. You're going to I'll sign a disclaimer.
Oh, right. You better give me extra for that.
Yes.
Oh, man. So going through all of that type of stuff, right? All of these different calls, hard calls, good calls, the whole gamut of 911. There are some times when you also need to take time for yourself, whether it be, I don't know, going home and just chilling or whatever, or you have the chance to do what you experienced recently a few months ago at the ranch. And the reason I want to bring this up as well is because I want to ask you what that experience was like for you and kind of what you got out of it, because your group, like a lot of other groups, not every group is the same, but like Joe and Amy and myself, like all of us instructors, we always tell everyone there, you get out of this what you're going to put in. And sometimes there are some groups that it takes them a few days to really get into it. But like your group, and I think this past March, like it was almost immediate. You were putting everything in, and people are connecting, talking, learning from each other. and just it can be life-changing for a lot of
Yeah.
people. So what was it like for you?
It absolutely was life changing. I never thought that I would be able to have the courage to do this. I came by myself. I've flown before by myself, but going to Texas, I'd never been. And this group of people, and I had nobody to, like to latch onto. And it was just, I luckily found one group the first night there, and I offered, like, you know, hey, I have no friends, so I'm going to sit over here if that's okay, and you can talk to me or not. And they literally just adopted me, and I stopped like hanging with them for the remainder. Everybody, all the sessions when we were in the training room, every single one made me find out something more about myself that I didn't realize. That I am good at what I do. That I am a good mother. I am a good daughter. I try as much as I can. It was an eye-opening experience that made me think about things not even work-related, that I never really took the time to notice or to know that it was okay. And just the relationships that I made, I'll never forget. And luckily, a couple of them I still text with pretty much almost every other day. And I'm planning a return maybe sometime in February just for a long weekend to go and hang with them, hopefully. I don't know, it made me feel strong, and I was terrified the entire time, but I am determined to, if I feel scared about something, it's going to make me want to do it even more and just get past it, because I do have a lot to offer to the world, and it's important to embrace everything. I know it sounds corny. Life is short. It really is. And it is a screwed up profession. And I mean, there's so many ways that it can just turn you completely dark and not able to move forward, find the things that light you up. And this experience in Texas was absolutely, like, it set me on fire. It was amazing.
So I love to hear that, and the fact that you still speak with, some of those folks that are there, because it's hard to explain sometimes. It's just that connection with a
Oh, yeah.
lot of different people, and you've got people who are coming from all over the place, and when you start talking, and the fact that they brought you in, you're like, come on, and you
Oh,
guys are
yeah.
still talking and everything else. You end up realizing as well that you are more similar than you think. Sometimes, we think, "Ah, I'm the only one. I'm the only one going through this,"
Yeah.
and then you meet folks from other places. You're like, okay, I'm not the only one. We're in this together, and we're going to be learning from each other. So that I love that.
Yeah, it was awesome, and just the stories, and oh my god, I was like, I swear to God, no one's gonna even know what I'm talking about when I get back. And it was hilarious, like the private jokes and everything. But the cool thing was, I'm not going to say everybody, but most of the people in my life wanted to hear about it. They were all excited to see my pictures and to see that I actually went horseback riding twice. And I sat on that longhorn steer, Nacho.
Yes,
Nacho was
Nacho.
awesome. Nacho was so great. So it was wonderful to be able to share it when I got back, because I don't always have that type of, some of the people in my life, they just don't get the certain, the adventure, like the weird stories, the things like that. And this was just special and just for me, but I was able to share it with all of these other awesome people that were doing the same thing. So,
And then you've got Joe and all of us who are
oh yeah,
there for your
oh
instructors.
yeah,
But also like Joe just jamming out, on his
oh
harmonica or guitar
yeah.
or whichever, singing. Like,
And
man,
he
that
was
dude.
sick as hell at the end too, and he
Oh,
still
yeah, he
did it.
was.
I felt so bad. Oh, I think about it sometimes. Like, I wonder how he's doing. I'm sure he's
Yeah.
not so sick.
It was like the 2.5, or maybe the last 2 days, something like that. He
Yeah.
kept coming up to me and he's like, "I'm gonna step out for a little bit. I'm just gonna lay down and I'll be back." I'm like, "You all right, dude?" And he's like, no,
No,
I
I'm
feel
not.
something coming on, but I'll be all right. And I said, okay. I said, if you need anything, just let any of us know. That's why we're here. And it's like, all right.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think on his way home on Friday, that's when it really hit, because he's just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna stop at a hotel possibly and sleep it off, and
Probably
then I'll
going
make
to.
my way home. So for him to say that,
Oh yeah.
he was not feeling good at all. No,
No.
no, not at all. So you end up going through, just everything that you've done, your experience there at the ranch, and just, I guess, kind of learning about yourself as well, because a lot of that stuff there is you kind of, in a way, facing your own demons, but with
Right.
people who understand and know what you're going through. And along with that, having some amazing food,
Yeah.
the
Too
networking,
much.
I know, yeah, it's a lot of food, right? And the little activities, at
Yeah.
the end as well. And it just, it's it's like a conference in a way, because of the networking, and you feel like that, rejuvenated. You've got all these different ideas, but this is much deeper, because this is about you, and it's only like about 40 people that are
Yep.
going through all of this with you together. And it's a great experience.
It really is. I want everybody I know to go to it. It's just absolutely amazing. I can't talk enough about it. It was fantastic.
So I've enjoyed having you on and talking
Me
with
too.
you, and learning about you. This has been a lot of fun. And I've got I've got one question for you as we
Shoot.
go into the wrap up of this. This is not a question that I sent you.
Okay.
And
Oh
but
God, no, I'm scared.
but it is a question, actually, that I've asked you twice already. Once at the end of the ranch, and the other time during my keynote in Maine. So here's the question. If you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your dispatch career, and this isn't to change anything, just to kind of give yourself some advice, because a lot of times stuff that we've gone through has made us who we are today, right? Um, so if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, get ready for the ride of your life and just embrace all of it and don't say no to any opportunity that comes your way. Because it took me longer than it should have to realize what a special community that I was actually in. I knew that I was where I wanted to be, but I didn't want to put myself out there to do anything additional. And then one day I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to go to a training. I'm going to go to a conference. And I met so many more people like me. And yeah, so don't be afraid to just go out there and do it and show the world that you can do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on. This has been just an honor. It's been a lot of fun to have you
Thank
on and just
you.
learn more about you. And thank you very, very much for what you do for this profession as well.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It was great to see you again.
Hell yes. Yeah, it was great to see you too. And I will be back with you here in just one moment, so hang tight with me. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on social media. You can help support the podcast as well. You can do all of this easily by going to links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with two eyes.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there. My email, social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episode, where to also schedule an episode if you'd like to be on. Whether you are new to dispatch, seasoned, or you are retired, I would love to share your story to literally millions around the world. I've been doing this for over a decade. I love what I do. This is my passion. And I would love to share your story. So there's a button on there as well where you can schedule an episode. You can also find where you can pre-order volume 1 of Imagine Listening, where you can purchase volume 2. And then if you scroll down right underneath that, you can also check out some free continuing education as well as podcast and dispatch merchandise from the store. So again, it's linkswith2eyes.co/WTT podcast. You can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Instagram, LinkedIn Live, and X, sometimes on TikTok as well. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.